Am I the a-hole for telling my wife she can't give up on our daughter just because parenting is hard? For context, my wife and I are childhood sweethearts, married now for around 5 years. I know we became parents and got married pretty young, but we've made it work. We were just kids ourselves when we found out we were expecting, terrified but determined. I remember sitting in the tiny kitchen of our first apartment, counting pennies and sketching out a future on paper napkins. We promised each other back then that no matter how hard things got, we would always be a team. My wife's a small business owner. She turned a passion into a career. I'm really happy for her. Watching her build her brand from scratch, spending late nights typing away until her eyes were bloodshot, made me incredibly proud. When she started, I promised her that since my work hours were flexible, I'd hold things down at home so she could focus on building her business. I took over the grocery shopping, the meal planning, the school runs, and the laundry. I wanted to give her the space to fly, believing that her success would ultimately be our success as a family. We were a team until we weren't. My wife's an extreme workaholic, and it's come between our family. We're not in a good place. Our daughter's caregiving is solely on me. It sneaked up on us slowly. First, it was just staying an extra hour at the office. Then, it turned into bringing the laptop to the dinner table. Eventually, she was physically present but mentally miles away, her eyes constantly darting to her buzzing phone. Our daughter is 10 now, and her entire world revolves around my routine because her mother is simply a ghost in our house. The time my wife and daughter spend together is made up mostly of short replies or silence. Our daughter isn't disrespectful. She's a good kid. She's just not as comfortable with her mom. I see it every single evening. My wife will walk through the front door, drop her keys, and offer a distracted, "How was school?" without even looking up. Our daughter will give a one-word answer, look down at her feet, and quietly retreat to her bedroom. There is this heavy, awkward tension between them, like two strangers forced to share an elevator. My wife and I have had a lot of talks about the state of our family. With the business well off the ground and her not needing to personally oversee everything as often, we're working on reconnecting. It's been an uphill battle. Every time I try to schedule a date night or a family outing, a last-minute crisis at work always seems to pull her away. I've spent countless nights sitting on the couch alone, watching the clock tick past midnight, wondering when the woman I married is actually going to come back to us. Recently, we had a bad fight. She told me she's given up on trying with our daughter. She said she's not good at it, and she's just going to stay in her lane. We were in the kitchen, and the cold indifference in her voice absolutely shattered me. She looked so detached, as if she were talking about a failed marketing campaign rather than our own flesh and blood. I told her she couldn't decide to clock out on our daughter during rocky stints. She said she's emotionally exhausted from repeatedly striking out. She feels she can't do anything right in our daughter's eyes. She threw her hands up in the air, her face flushing with frustration as she explained how every attempt she makes seems to blow up in her face. She said I have it easy, that our daughter prefers me, and even made sure her whole class knew it. The class jab was about a school assignment. Our daughter had to interview someone she admired, and she asked me. My wife was hurt. She still feels a way about it. I remember the day our daughter brought that assignment home, beaming with pride as she asked me about my life, completely unaware that her mother was listening from the hallway, her heart breaking in secret. She accused me of not understanding. She comes home to a child she carried not respecting her. That our daughter's an expert critic when it comes to her. She went into a huge rant. The way she talked about her rubbed me the wrong way. She spoke about our 10-year-old as if she were a malicious adversary, an intentional bully who woke up every day with the sole purpose of making her mother feel inadequate. I told her most of her complaints weren't our daughter's creation. She asked me what that meant, and I laid it out that she hasn't gone out of her way to connect with our daughter. She shut me down. She went into how she busts her ass for our family, and the least I could do is show up for her. She paced around the kitchen, listing every single financial contribution she made, using her hard work as a shield against her emotional absence. All I do is show up for her, including holding down responsibilities that we're supposed to share. We aren't childless. It's no longer those me and her against the world days. I need to show up for our daughter too. I cannot let our little girl grow up feeling like she is a burden or an afterthought to the woman who gave birth to her. She just kept saying she has a lot on her plate and how I'm supposed to be her piece. I refuted the only piece that ever seemed to matter these days was hers. I told her that my piece mattered too, and our daughter's piece mattered most of all, but everything always had to bend to accommodate her stress and her schedule. She said our daughter and I are two of a kind and began sarcastically apologizing for her sacrifices, and if the business is what's driving us apart, then she'll renounce it. She'd make do. I asked if we could skip her martyr routine and actually talk. It was exhausting. Instead of hearing my pain, she weaponized her success, threatening to tear down everything she built just to make me feel guilty for speaking up. The fight only escalated. I called the fight a complete waste of time, but she interpreted that as me calling her a waste of time. It was the worst fight we had in a while. Our daughter was at her grandparents', so she didn't hear anything, thank God. But the silence in the house afterward was deafening, leaving us staring at each other across a massive chasm of resentment. We're at an impasse. Things are still tense. It's how to clear the air or how to reach her about our daughter. She can't dismiss her like some disgruntled customer at work. In a lot of ways, I feel like a single parent. I handle the emotional heavy lifting, the comfort after a bad day, the scraped knees, and the bad dreams, while my wife just hovers on the periphery. I don't believe she's being honest with herself about our issues. She's a distant figure who has a habit of talking at our daughter instead of to her. There are a lot of broken promises. Nothing ever mended. The emotional scar tissue has just built up over the years, layers of disappointment burying whatever fragile bond they used to have. She doesn't try engaging. Our daughter loves anime, but my wife doesn't hold back on overly criticizing it in front of her, calling it childish and weird. Our daughter got into K-pop, but to my wife it's just bothersome noise around the house or in the car. I've watched our daughter's face fall as she eagerly tried to share a new song, only for her mom to immediately ask her to turn down that racket. Our daughter has stage fright. Yet she joined a school play because she knows her mom loves theater. She practiced her lines in her room for hours, pushing through her intense anxiety just to find a common ground with her mother. My wife promised her she'd come. She didn't. The worst part was seeing our daughter realize she wasn't. Standing backstage, scanning the audience for a face that never showed up, her little shoulders slumping in defeat. My wife never apologized. She gave her, work was busy. I promise next time speech. She offered to bring our daughter with her on Take Your Child to Work Day. I thought it'd be good for them and a chance for our daughter to see more of what her mom does. But our daughter called me upset and wanted me to pick her up. She said her mom had immediately left her with a subordinate and went AWOL. She spent hours sitting in a swivel chair, coloring alone, while her mother ran from meeting to meeting. When my wife checked in on her, they fought. She told our daughter that a bratty attitude won't be tolerated in her workplace. She and I had it out later. She apologized to our daughter and blamed blowing up on work frustration. She offered to bring her back another day, but our daughter refused. The trust was entirely gone, replaced by a deep-seated fear of rejection. My wife always felt she was bad at articulating her feelings. She feels she comes off aggressive. That's partly why she leaves our daughter's caretaking to me. But this fight has me questioning the nature of our relationship. If she can just walk away from her relationship with our child because it gets too difficult, what stops her from doing the exact same thing to me when our marriage hits a rough patch? I don't doubt she loves our daughter. I saw it firsthand during the pregnancy, and in our private conversations, she couldn't stop gushing about her. I felt her love in the little things, in the way she used to gently rub her belly and whisper sweet things to the future we were building. Something changed over time. The pressure of success seemed to harden her, turning her into a pragmatic businesswoman who forgot how to just be a mother. My wife isn't close with her parents. She usually has me talk with them on her behalf because their interactions are so strained and toxic. She has a mindset that parents/kids don't have to be close. She believes since she turned out fine, so will our daughter. She uses her own emotional detachment as a blueprint, completely blind to the fact that her relationship with her parents left her with deep emotional wounds that she is now passing down. I'm failing to help their relationship and our own. We barely have quality time. Intimacy is shot. We haven't even thought about the horizontal tango in months. We are just two tired roommates passing each other in the dark. When we're out together, we aren't really together because in public, she's hyper-aware and has her business persona on, constantly shaking hands and networking instead of being present with her husband. What else to do? I'm at a loss. I'm not trying to bash my wife. I just want everyone to be okay. I'm in a fight for my family right now. Am I the a-hole? Update. Thank you to everyone who reached out. It helped more than I expected. My original post was the first time I'd ever put any of this into words outside of my own head, and reading through the responses gave me perspective I honestly needed. A lot has happened since then, so I wanted to give an update. My wife and I finally had the conversation we'd both been avoiding. It didn't happen right away because things stayed tense after our last fight. We weren't yelling anymore, but we also weren't acting like ourselves. There were little arguments, awkward silence, and neither of us really knew how to bridge the gap. Our daughter noticed before either of us admitted how bad things had gotten. She asked why her mom and I seemed upset with each other. That hit me hard. I'd always promised myself that our relationship problems would stay between us, yet she had already picked up on them. That was enough to make me realize we couldn't keep putting this conversation off. My wife was the one who asked if we could sit down and talk. We both apologized for how our last argument went. She admitted she'd started believing I was getting ready to leave because I wasn't bouncing back after the fight the way I usually do. The distance between us scared her, and she wanted to make things right before it was too late. I told her the argument itself wasn't what shook me. What stayed with me was hearing her talk about our daughter the way she did. It made me question what our family actually looked like from the inside. She apologized for that. She admitted she'd unloaded all of her frustration onto our daughter because she felt overwhelmed and didn't know what else to do. She said she loves our daughter deeply but feels completely lost when it comes to parenting her. I explained that all three of us would continue feeling lost if nothing changed. Our marriage has been drifting, our family barely spends meaningful time together, and I've reached the point where I genuinely feel like I'm raising our daughter alone. The common denominator wasn't that anyone lacked love. It was that my wife simply wasn't present often enough for either relationship to grow. I also admitted something I'd been holding back. There were times when I honestly felt like our daughter and I were simply being fit into whatever space remained after everything else in her life. That comment visibly upset her. She insisted we mattered more than anything and that she'd never intentionally make us feel disposable. She acknowledged that things weren't good and admitted that when she's overwhelmed she says things she doesn't actually mean. I told her my concern wasn't limited to words. The broken promises, the missed moments, and the pattern of choosing work over family had slowly built up over years. I couldn't make our daughter trust her again. That had to come from consistent effort. For the first time, my wife opened up about something she'd only briefly mentioned before. She described always feeling like she was chasing a sense of fulfillment that never lasted. She thought our relationship would finally make her feel complete. Then she believed becoming a mother would do it. Later, she convinced herself her business would fill whatever was missing. Every achievement gave her relief for a little while before the feeling disappeared again, sending her searching for the next thing. She admitted she doesn't know how to connect with our daughter now that she's older. When she was little, every visit home from work ended with hugs, excitement, and unconditional affection. As our daughter grew up, that changed. She became closer to me because I was the parent who was consistently there. My wife interpreted that distance as rejection instead of asking why it existed. I asked whether she'd ever considered that years of criticism, missed commitments, and emotional distance had probably hurt our daughter more than either of us realized. She admitted she'd always measured herself against her own parents. Compared to them, she believed she was doing well. The truth is, her childhood was incredibly strict. Children were expected to obey without question, keep their opinions to themselves, and make the family look good. Mistakes were punished harshly, emotions were dismissed, and physical discipline was considered normal. She said she never wanted to repeat that cycle, but because healthy communication wasn't modeled for her, she often avoided parenting altogether out of fear she'd handle it badly. I already knew most of that history. We were together through it. My father-in-law worked constantly, my mother-in-law was rarely emotionally available, and my wife spent much of her childhood raising herself. When we found out we were expecting our daughter, I was 17 and she was 19. Instead of support, we mostly received judgment. Her parents made it clear that becoming parents meant we were on our own. They've softened over the years, but my wife still wants no contact with them. She even used money from her business to pay off their house before walking away. Since then, I've remained the point of contact whenever communication has been necessary. Looking back, I also had to admit something about myself. I've spent so many years protecting my wife from everyone else that I became blind to the ways our daughter needed someone protecting her too. During the pregnancy, people constantly judged us, made comments, or treated us like we were irresponsible kids. Standing beside my wife became second nature, and somewhere along the way I started excusing things I shouldn't have. I finally told her where I stood. I love her, and I still want this marriage, but our daughter can't continue paying the price while we hope things eventually improve. We had reached a point where something concrete needed to happen. I told her counseling was no longer optional for me. I wanted us to go together. If she refused, I would respect that decision, but I'd also have to make decisions that protected our daughter. That would likely mean separating for the time being. She didn't argue. She said that if the choice was counseling or losing our family, then counseling was the easy decision. She wants our marriage, she wants to repair her relationship with our daughter, and she doesn't want either of us feeling like background characters in her life anymore. I asked if she genuinely meant that because showing up once wasn't enough. She said she understood and knew consistency would matter far more than promises. Before scheduling anything, I also talked with our daughter. I didn't want to surprise her with therapy. I explained what counseling was and asked how she felt about it. She was surprisingly open to the idea, probably because my parents have gone to counseling themselves, so it wasn't something scary or unfamiliar to her. We're officially in counseling now and doing a conjoint therapy approach. It's completely new territory for both of us. My wife has never been enthusiastic about therapy, but she's attended every appointment so far and hasn't looked for excuses to avoid it. There have already been a few encouraging moments. She's been making a conscious effort to criticize less and ask our daughter about her interests instead of immediately dismissing them. We recently spent a day together at an amusement park. It wasn't some movie moment where everything magically became perfect, but it was different. My wife asked to ride with our daughter on several attractions, they played games together, and for the first time in a long while I heard them genuinely laugh together without it feeling forced. We're still at the beginning of this process. I don't expect years of hurt to disappear overnight, and rebuilding trust is going to take far more than a handful of good days. Whatever kind of relationship my wife and daughter eventually have will be something they build together. My job is to support our daughter and make sure she knows both of her parents are making the effort. I don't know exactly what the future looks like, but for the first time in a while, it doesn't feel hopeless. Our daughter starts middle school soon, and she's going to need both of us. I want my wife standing beside her for those milestones instead of hearing about them afterward. I'm hoping this isn't the end of my family. I still believe we can come through this together. I didn't marry my wife simply because we were having a baby. I married her because I loved her and wanted to build a life with her. I still want that life. Now we're finally doing the work that should have started years ago. Thank you again to everyone who took the time to read, comment, and offer advice. I genuinely appreciate all of the support. It means more than you know.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.